Good morning friends, myself Dr. Ashish Banchal from Trisha Institute of Biology, and today we will discuss the chapter plant growth and the development. So first, what is growth and what is development? Actually growth and development two are very similar term, but when we detail the discussion of the growth and the development, the growth means increase the size of the cell or increase the mass of the cell, then it is called the growth. Whereas the development means once the cell get divided and it form a number of cell, this number of cell is undergoing the differentiation and it form the tissue, organ and organ system. This process is called the development. Okay, so first growth. What is growth? Growth is the irreversible permanent increase the size or the number of cell or organ or a particular part of the plant, then it is called the growth. Always growth is irreversible process. Once the size of the plant is increased, it never get decrease. Okay, and we all know that the growth is accompanied by the metabolic process that we already discussed in the chapter first. Okay, the growth is the characteristics of the living organisms and it is accompanied by the metabolic process. Okay, and we know that the metabolic process are divided into two types. One is anabolic and second one is the catabolic process. So what is anabolic and the catabolic process? Anabolic means synthesis process. For an example like photosynthesis, what happened during the photosynthesis? In photosynthesis, plant gets synthesized the food. Okay, and during this process the energy is used. This is called the anabolic process. Whereas the second one is catabolic process, and catabolic process is the degradative process. For an example is respiration, and during the respiration what happened? The glucose get breakdown. During the respiration the glucose breakdown takes place and it relieves the energy. Whenever the anabolic processes increase, the catabolic process which results into growth, or when the anabolic processes decrease, then the catabolic process, then it results into the senescence. Okay, so this is called anabolic and the catabolic process. Now the development. What is development? So in development it is the sum of the two process. One is the growth and second one is differentiation. Okay, it is the sum of the two process. One is the growth and second one is differentiation. What is growth? As we discussed, growth is increase the number of cell or a mass of cell, that is called growth. And the differentiation means it is the cell undergoing the differentiation, it forms the tissue to tissue system and tissue system to organ, and last it forms the organism. This is called the differentiation. Okay, and in plant the growth and the development is governed by the two main factor. One is intrinsic factor and second one is extrinsic factor. Intrinsic factor means internal factor and the extrinsic factor means external factor. For an example, like intrinsic factor means various growth promoter like plant growth regulator, that is the auxins, gibberellin, cytokinin. These three are the plant growth promoter. Which one? Auxins, gibberellins and the cytokinins are the plant growth promoter, whereas abscisic acid and the ethylene are the plant growth inhibitors. Okay, and they are synthesized by plant, that's why they are the intrinsic factor. Whereas the extrinsic factor are water, temperature, light, O2 and nutritional. These are the external factor which affect the development of the plant. Okay, now next term is the generally in plant the growth is indeterminate. Indeterminate means it continuously increase and it shows the growth throughout the life. That's why in plant the growth is indeterminate, as well as in plant the growth is the open form of the growth. It is called the open form of the growth. Okay, What is open form of the growth? In plant, the cell get continuously divide and it increase the size throughout the life. That's why it is called the open form of the growth. We all know that plant has the meristematic tissue, and this meristematic tissue has high cell division capacity, and they are continuously divide and added a new cell, and it shows the continuous growth. That's why it is called the open form of the growth. Okay, now as we discussed earlier in the chapter number 6, okay, the plant possesses mainly three types of the meristematic cells. One is apical meristems, second one is intercalary meristems, where the apical meristems is present. So apical meristems is present at the apical part of the root and the stem, whereas the intercalary meristems is present at the base of the node and the internodes. Okay, so that apical meristems and intercalary meristems, they are responsible for the primary growth of the plant, whereas the lateral meristems, which is present on the lateral side of the plant, like cork cambium and the vascular cambium, and they are responsible for the secondary growth in the plant. Okay, always during the primary growth, the plant shows the lengthwise growth, and during the secondary growth, plant shows the girth or increase the width of the plant. Okay, so in plant growth and development, first the growth is the irreversible permanent increase in the size of organ part of plant as well as the individual cell. Growth is accompanied by the metabolic process, and in the metabolic process it includes the two, anabolic and catabolic. Whenever the anabolic process increase, the growth will be there. Whenever the catabolic process is increased, it will be senescence or the death. Development is the sum of the two process, growth as well as the differentiation. Growth increase the size as the number, and the differentiation means the cell undergoing the differentiation and it perform as a tissue system, organ and organ system. Always the development is regulated by the two main factor, intrinsic and extrinsic factor. Intrinsic factor, which is synthesized inside the plant, like such hormone, auxin, gibberellin, cytokinin, abscisic acid and the ethylene. And the extrinsic factor means the external factor like water, temperature, light, O2 and nutritional. Okay, in plant the growth is indeterminate and the open form of the growth. Why it is indeterminate and open growth? Because in plant the growth is continuous, that's why it is called the indeterminate and the open form of the growth. In plant, for the growth, it has the meristematic tissue, and this meristematic tissue has the high cell division capacity. They continuously divide and added a new cell, and it shows the growth throughout the life. That's why it is called the open form of the growth. In plant, there are mainly three types of the meristematic cells: apical meristems and intercalary meristems. They are responsible for the primary growth of the plant, and the lateral meristems like cork cambium and the vascular cambium is responsible for the secondary growth in the plant. In plant, the primary growth increase the length of the plant, and the secondary growth increase the girth or the width of the plant. In next lecture, we will discuss the measurement of the growth and the growth rate. Okay, thank you.